Greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
Live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTainmentRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio, the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
Good morning and welcome to the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller on TalkTainmentRadio.com. We go where you go on the world's greatest radio. You are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, and I am your co-host, Mr. Bobby, and this is radio the way it should be heard. We are broadcasting live on Facebook.com/Talktainment. So if you would like, you can look at us on your device, and you can see us, and then you can, of course, call in or Gmail me, and we'll do our thing for 2 hours. You know, we are on for 2 hours now, from 9 a.m. until 11 a.m. That is Eastern time. So you can do that. You can call in, and we can get this baby rolling. We're talking with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., the author of this great book right here, which I'm going to show on the screen, as you can see, the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. And all it is simply a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism, which is white supremacy. And I'm holding in my hand here the revised expanded edition. But Mr. Fuller will tell you that the first book that he has written is still valid. But this is a revised expanded edition. And also with that, you get a word guide, which I'm going to show you. Put that on the screen right here. Okay, and we will be going out of these books today, and along with your questions. In fact, you can call in if you'd like at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, B-O-B-B-Y, at gmail.com, and we will try to get your emails read as quickly as possible. They do go into a question rotation. Okay, let's see here. I'll get the mic straight. Mr. Fuller, as we always say, start out the program. Good morning, and how are you?
Good morning. I'm still learning.
You are still learning. Very quickly, what are you still learning today, or observed since the last time we spoke?
Well, I'm trying to learn more and more each day. I think it was Abraham Lincoln who said he doesn't think very much of a person who doesn't know more today than they knew yesterday. Mm-hmm. And it might be something of merit to be said for that, because a person is always in school. That's the compensatory concept. Compensatory meaning making up. When you go to school, when you try to learn anything, you're making up for what you don't know. And so a person should always be in that mode, I think. I mean, that's the logical process. There's always a lot more to know than what you already know. That's the assumption. And that would apply to any creature, person, animal, insect, whatnot. You always know less than what you should know, no matter how long you stay here. Even if you stay here 1,000 years, there's still something to know, something that you don't know about, that you can learn. That's the logical assumption. So I think that's right in line with what we're trying to do here. And what you learn, since there are so many problems, should be applied to problem solving. See, See, it's not just a matter of learning just for the sake of learning. However, that has its merits too. But you should learn mostly for the purpose of solving problems. That should be the purpose of every school. At the end of the day, a teacher should say, now, the students, let's see, we've been over a lot here. Now, what problems do you think that we may have helped to solve? We're on the path to solving. I mean, they should always have that in mind. Every teacher, every instructor, every person should have it in mind at the end of every day. Did they learn something that might have something to do with problem solving? Because there are so many thousands of problems. Large problems, small problems that come up all during the day. Problems that you hadn't thought about before. So the compensatory process is about learning, really, for the purpose of solving problems. And of course, the biggest problem, according to the counter-racist code, that part of it is racism among the people of the planet.
All righty. Well, today, again, we are going to, I believe this is the 8th installment in the 6th area of people activity, which is politics. And if you have your book, we're going to start on page 243. 243, that's of the revised expanded edition. We're going to start there. Or at least have your books ready so that you can do that. Now, let's start off with a Gmail here, and Mr. Fuller, it says, this is from the WAB. He says, Mr. Fuller, you often talk about how we should avoid confusion as much as possible, and the one thing I think separates you from most other speakers out here is that you are clear, concise, and correct in most instances. However, there is one area where I believe, and I'm sure I'm not the only one in the listening audience who thinks this, present a bit of confusing information. It is where you told a caller last week when he asked which area of activity would the media, namely the news media, fall under, and you said, I believe, politics or economics, because basically media is just people talking among each other with or without a camera present. Mr. Fuller, I don't get that. I'm confused. And it's not just with this, but also when you suggest that the health, wellness, medicine should fall under politics or economics as well. None of that makes logical sense to me beyond a certain point. Now, I get it, how you use your time with economics, but it seems in the end that you just are hell-bent on not expanding your areas of activity beyond the 9, which is why you oftentimes try and justify fitting proverbial round pegs into square holes. Just my observation. I still greatly admire and respect your work and what you do, but I just can't jibe with any of that because it seems it doesn't make logical sense. Mr. Fuller, your response.
Oh, that's an observation. So that would come under VGQ. The things that I'm saying, including everything that I've written and everything that I do say, may or may not make sense to the person who is listening. Now, the person who is listening or reading my materials say, well, I see where this doesn't make sense, so there must be something that does make sense. So that person can go in that direction. That's what I call the beauty of the compensatory code united independent feature. It leaves everybody united in what our goals may be, presumably, which is to solve problems, basically, all problems. I mean, every problem that ever will exist, solve it, solve it, solve it. So that means it takes a lot of people doing a lot of thinking. The supplementary title of the basic textbook is Thought, Speech, and action for victims of racism. So you think, then you speak, then you act. Basically, you're using your mind. That's what the compensatory logic is supposed to be about. You evolve. You're constantly evolving. You're constantly trying to learn more and trying to do the better thing until you find out whatever the best thing is. And that includes all your thinking, all your speaking, and all your acting. Victims guaranteed qualification. You're qualified to do that just by being a victim. So if Neely Fuller says anything that doesn't make sense to you, and I've told people this, anything that you read in the textbook doesn't make sense to you, then you think about something and writing something yourself that does make sense. And follow that. Because no one has solved the thing that the basic textbook is written for, the revised edition of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. It's a book that's supposed to be designed to help a person to be able to solve problems, and the major problem is the race issue, the problem of white supremacy, presumably. Now, some people would even argue about that. They'll say there's no such thing. Why is Fuller trying to solve the so-called race issue in the form of something called white supremacy when white supremacy doesn't exist? There are people who have said that. Mm-hmm. Now, the people who do say that, then you say, okay, well, if that doesn't exist, then what does exist? And then, under VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification, you're qualified just by being a victim or not being a victim. Since you say that, the people who say that racism doesn't exist, then use the logic that you want to use. See, the criteria is not Neely Fuller. Mm-hmm. See, I want to emphasize that. I say that over and over again. The criteria is not Neely Fuller for doing anything. The criteria is logic. Logic came with the universe. Neely Fuller depends on logic, and when he makes mistakes, and he will make a bunch of them, so anytime you detect a mistake, then you just go on and say, well, Fuller doesn't know what he's doing there, but I think that I do, or even if I don't. I detect that he doesn't know what he's doing, so I'm going to start thinking on a different level from where Fuller is, an improved level, a much better level. And I'm going to scrap what he said, or I'm just going to study what he said, and the parts that I don't agree with, I'm going to write something on my own. That's how it's supposed to be. See, the argument shouldn't be an argument. That's what compensatory logic is supposed to be about.
Yes, sir.
Eliminating arguments and having what? Exchanges of views. Exchanges of views are all equal. That's in the book itself. It says we exchange views. And one person has one view, another person has another view. And what you do is examine the views, regardless of who's saying them, and then come up with the best view of everything.
All righty.
That's compensatory logic.
That's compensatory logic. Okay, TalkTameRadio.com is a 24/7, no-charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and, of course, politics. Now, here are several that I'd like to share with you. One is called the Father and Son Connection. The other one is called the Kinsman. And then the other one is called Wiggins World. Now, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTameRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTameRadio.com homepage and then click on programs for the scheduled times. TalkTameRadio.com. That's radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And listen, we are broadcasting live right now on Facebook.com/Talktainment. Facebook.com/Talktainment. You can see us live in addition to hearing us on the radio. You can also call in at 779329766, or you can Gmail me at the number 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com, and I will try to get to your emails, even though they do go into a question rotation. Before we go on page 243, let's take a phone call. Okay, caller, you are line 1. You are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. What is your question?
Good morning to two of my favorite people in the world, Mr. Fuller and Mr. Bobby. Good morning to you guys.
Good morning.
This is Brother Muko from Baltimore, where we hold the compensatory constructive action meetings at St. Louis Drive under the dome every Saturday, 9 to 10. And my question for Mr. Fuller today, for the people in Baltimore, Mr. Fuller, can you please explain why it is important to learn what racism, white supremacy is first before dabbling in any area of people activity? Because I think, I know for a lot of my care unit in Baltimore, a lot of us are confused because we try to dabble into the system first and try to understand the areas of people activity first before understanding the system that these areas of people activity operate in. So could you please explain for the people in Baltimore why it is important to learn what racism, white supremacy is first?
Okay, Mr. Fuller?
Well, it's important because if we're in the problem-solving business, and everybody on the planet wakes up every morning trying to solve some type of problem, even if it's just the problem of trying to get the bicycle fixed to go down the road somewhere in Somalia and get to the market. And you have a wheel missing on your bicycle. I mean, well, you're no longer a bicycle. I mean, you don't have two wheels there. So you got a wheel missing. You're going to have to find other wheels before you can get the bicycle running. So it's the same way with solving the world problems that causes all the other problems. And the assumption, according to what I've written, is that you're not going to solve any problem, any major problem among the people of this planet without solving the race problem. And the race problem takes the form of white supremacy. So if you're going to solve a problem, you have to know what the problem is, what it is, and how it works. You have to examine the bicycle, so to speak, and see that, well, how come the bicycle ain't working? Well, it ain't working because you got a wheel missing. Where's the other wheel? So you find that other wheel and you put it on the bicycle, and then you get on the bicycle and see if it works now. Now that the bicycle has two wheels, which a bicycle usually has, if you have three wheels, you have a tricycle. Mm-hmm. So then you say, okay, the bicycle is now a bicycle, and it works. It's the same way with the bicycle as it is with solving any other problem. You first recognize what is causing most of the problems on the planet, among the people of the planet. Well, directly and indirectly, I have come to the conclusion. Now, I'm just one person, but I came to the conclusion years ago, you can't solve any major problem without solving the problem of racism. You can go at it, you can do this and do that, and go here and go there and talk to this person and talk to that person, but you're going to run into the problem of racism if you're a person with color in your skin. That person with color in his or her skin is going to, in any area of activity, economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, war, or any other, what you might call sub-areas that you want to add. I mean, any area. I mean, fixing a bicycle, that's an area of activity. Mm-hmm. If you want to make it a major one, you can say that's one of the major problems of the world. You don't have enough bicycles, or you don't have enough bike paths for the bicycles once you get the bicycles. And you need more areas where you can ride a bicycle. Or some areas you can't go in a bicycle. You're trying to get through the forest, maybe. So that becomes the problem. But you're not going to solve any major problem, the assumption is, that I have, without solving the problem of can't agree on that, there's no point in talking about anything else. Because that's what I do. I immediately tell people, well, if we can't agree that racism is the biggest problem on the planet among people, then there's no point in us having a further discussion about racism or about anything even associated with it. We just let that go, and we'll have a discussion about, where's the bicycle wheel, or whatever it is you want to have a discussion about. But about solving the world problem, you're not going to do that without solving the problem of racism. That's the biggest problem. I've already come to that conclusion. I don't deviate from that conclusion. So anybody who is talking about the subject, like the question is, how do you get people to come around to that? You don't. You just simply say, that's what you talk about. If they don't want to talk about that, then ask them, what do you want to talk about? All right? And then if you agree to talk about the next subject, go ahead and talk about that next subject. That's the compensatory process. And if you don't agree, just say, well, I'll see you later when you do want to talk about racism. Because I'm about talking about racism, So you talk to somebody else. Don't talk to me if you don't want to talk about racism as the biggest problem.
All righty. There you have it. Thank you for the call from Baltimore. Mr. Fuller, let's go to page 243. And in the middle, there was a question asked, and there was a discussion that I had in my weekly meetings. And this came up, and it says, in the middle, it says, what exactly is the use of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept intended to cause white people to do? There was much discussion, but they wanted to hear what you had to say about that.
Okay, what exactly is the use of the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept intended to cause white people to do? Okay, because the book on the cover, it says a textbook workbook for thought, speech, and or action for victims of racism. Well, white people are not the victims of racism, because racism is white supremacy. So they're not victims. No white person is a victim of white supremacy. That's the assumption, the logical assumption. So what is this book intended to cause white people to do, if anything? And so the answer I have on page 243 is to either replace white supremacy with justice or kill all of the non-white people in the known universe. And then I have a long explanation for that. But that's the answer. If a white person asks me, for instance, you got this book about racism, well, what do you people, including yourself, Fuller, want white people to do? You say, well, I want you to practice justice, or the other logical thing would be to kill all the non-white people on the planet so you don't have to be bothered with us. Period. We will no longer be an issue. Because you can't make an issue out of things that don't exist. Out of people that don't exist, creatures that don't exist, fleas or mosquitoes or whatever you think is of no use whatsoever, you just eliminate it from the entire universe. And then you don't have to be bothered with it. You don't have to wake up in the morning thinking about what you're going to do about it, because there's nothing to do anything about. You have it like you want it, I guess, if that's what you want. But what I have written in the book, and I've said it in talks and seminars and whatnot, and I still repeat it here in 2017. What is it that this book that I've written is designed to do where white people are concerned? Either practice justice or just be honest about how you are, or how, what you really think, if you really are thinking that the black people, the non-white people of this planet, are absolutely good for nothing. They're just a whole lot of scraps that are in the way of white people on this planet. And just go ahead and kill us all while you can. Because there might come a day when you'll not be able to do that. That's the logic. I'm talking about pure logic. Right. I'm not talking about feelings here. I'm talking about if you have some people that shouldn't exist, then see to it that they don't exist, if that's your permission, and that's not anything that I recommend.
Yes.
I don't want to die. And, I'd like to be here forever if I can. But I'm saying it's logical that if white supremacists say that non-white people are completely useless, no good whatsoever, just something that's in the way. I mean, if you see a black person, just tell that black person, just get out of the way, because you're not good for anything. You're just in the way. You're in the way of progress. You're in the way of anything that makes sense, because there's nothing about you people that makes sense. There are a lot of white people who really think that. Then act on what you really think. That's all I'm saying. But I'm saying that what I'm depending on to defend me from that conclusion is whatever created me, and I say that in the book.
Yes.
Because black people say, boy, you asking white people to go ahead and kill us? Are you asking them to do that? I say, no, I'm saying if they think that, then stop playing with us and get it on.
Okay.
Just go ahead and do it. Stop arguing about it. Just do it. Like I think the young white person that went into that church, I think that might be what he had in mind.
You mean down in South Carolina?
I think that was the point that he was making.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's why he spared a black lady there to say, hey, this is my message, and I'm trying to get this message to other white people. I think that's what the message he was trying to convey. These people are useless. These black people are not good for anything. You can't name nothing that they're good for. That sounds like what he was saying. And I have run into personally a lot of white people in the time I've been on this planet that I think, they didn't say that, but I think that they thought that way. That black people were just completely useless, not good for anything that's of any constructive value. That we're just a destructive people, we're a bunch of garbage, we're a bunch of scraps, and we need not to even be here, that we shouldn't have been here in the first place on this planet. Now, my position is, whatever put us here will keep us here. Even if the white supremacists decide that they're going to exterminate us. And I act on that premise.
Okay.
I mean, even if they say that that's what they're going to do, I say, well, go right ahead. But whatever put us here will keep us here, because you're not fighting me. You fighting whatever put me here.
Mm-hmm.
See, I didn't have anything to do with being here. So whatever you go to it, you get that kind of attitude that you're going to destroy whatever the created. Well, good luck with that.
Okay.
Because maybe whatever created me will see to it that I remain in this universe until the Creator decides that I'm not supposed to be here anyway.
Okay.
That's the logic.
All right, that's the logic.
I won't disappear until the Creator, whatever created me, decides, well, I'm going to take away this creation from this particular planet. So I'll disappear anyway, if my Creator decides that. That's the logic. I think it's very logical to think that way.
Okay. Now, we're getting ready to go to a break, but there are three compelling questions that I'm going to ask you. They are on page 244 of the revised expanded edition. I won't ask the questions now because we're too close to the break, but we're going to get into that. TalkTameRadio.com. Listen, we go where you go, so you can check us out on GRN 94.1. The podcasts are available, so all you have to do is download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. Stay right there. We're going to ask those three questions, your phone calls, and some Gmails. All that and more coming up next. This is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on The Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And guess what? We are broadcasting live. Yes, we are. And all you have to do is go to facebook.com/talktainment. That's facebook.com/talktainment. And you can hear us. Now, if you don't know how to do that, just go to Google and ask Google how do you do that, and Google will help you to get on Facebook and you can see us. So that's facebook.com/talktainment. and then you should be able to see us. You can also call in at 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, Bobby, at gmail.com. We are speaking, as always, with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., live from Washington, D.C., taking your calls, answering your questions, and we are discussing the sixth area of people activity today, which is politics. This is the 8th installment of that. I think we have at least 2 more. That depends on you and how we can get through that. Now, I got a Gmail that I'm going to read, but I want to read 3 questions, and then we're going to have Mr. Fuller address these 3 questions after the Gmail. And you can ponder these. Maybe you can have your questions too. And these are on page 244 of the United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. This book right here that I'm holding up on the screen, this is the book that you need. And in a few minutes, I will have Mr. Fuller discuss this book in the Word Guide. But on page 244, he says this. The question came up, what is the best and correct thing to do if the white supremacists of the known universe decide to kill all of the non-white people of the known universe? That's question number 1. Question number 2, during the existence of white supremacy, that is racism, what are the most direct ways to stop non-white people from unjustly killing or maiming each other and or from seriously mistreating each other? And then the third one is, what is the basic and correct thing to say in regards to the unjust killing of non-white people by non-white people and the killing of non-white people by white people because of the system of racism or white supremacy? We're going to get into that, but before we do that, let's do this. This comes from a person that says this. It says, Mr. Fuller, you've been using your code for many decades. Would you please give us one example where you successfully countered racism using your code in the area of activity known as economics?
I can't measure that because economics is just a use of time and energy. So all I can say is I'm still here, and the white supremacists require us to have money, so I try to acquire money because that's the only thing they allow me to do in order to go here and go there and take care of this and take care of that and basically solve problems, because that's what money is supposed to do if it's used correctly. It's supposed to be a problem solver. So you can solve very few problems in the system of white supremacy if you're a person of color, because the white supremacists require people to have money, and they control the money, all of it, so they dole it out, and that, when they give money to me, when the white supremacists give me money, they give me just enough to be able to solve some small problems, but there are many, many problems that I won't be able to solve because I don't have enough money to do it. And they understand that. See what I mean? And they know that I'm not going to be able to do it because I'm not going to have enough money to do it. But I do the best that I can once I understand that that's what the setup is.
Yes, sir.
So that's how you do it.
Okay.
You just do the best you can. That's why I named my book Compensatory, meaning you just try to make up for what's missing. If you don't have money, you try to get money, but don't get it by trying to rob and steal.
Right. Okay.
Get it by just going to the white supremacists, because they are the source of all money that means anything, and ask them, what can you do to get your hands on the money that they require you to have in order to solve problems? And then don't put yourself in position to say where they will say, because they'll say this real quick, well, I gave you some money and you wasted that money on some nonsense. You went somewhere and bought some drugs or something, or you went somewhere and gambled it off, even though they make the drugs available to you and they make the gambling available to you and then entice you to do it. And then after you spend all your money at the gambling table, they tell you, well, you don't have enough money? well, you should have had enough money, but you gambled it all. And then they laugh at you
Yes,
because
sir.
all they're doing is just playing games with you.
Mm-hmm.
Even when they pay you at the pay counter, they already know that you're not going to be able to buy a house. Ever.
Yes. Yes.
They already know that. But they will play this little game with you saying, well, we're going to sell you a house, and you'll always have a house after we sell you this house. They're not telling the truth, because 20 years later, they will make you move out of that house and call it something like what? Gentrification.
Gentrification, yes.
Right.
That's happening all over.
Yeah, you can't stay here any longer.
Yes.
You say, well, I had a house. I got this house paid for. You told me that's what it would require. You said I'd always have a home. That's what you call it. You know, a house that I could make a home out of. Well, that's what somebody told you, but it doesn't quite work that way, old buddy.
Okay.
So as of July the 1st of next year, I want you out of here. I'm bulldozing everything around here. But in answer to the question, you just do the best you can.
Okay.
Because you can't solve any problem in the system of white supremacy permanently. You have to actually get rid of the problem.
Get rid of the problem.
That's the bottom line.
Okay. Let's go to the phone lines, and we are on line number 1. Okay, line number 1, you are now on with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Go ahead, please.
Greetings, this is Brother One from New Orleans. I hope everyone's doing fine. I have a question, Mr. Fuller. You often said that the white supremacist goal is not to eliminate non-white people or black people, because in order to do so, then they won't be able to practice white supremacy. So my question is, suppose the white supremacists decide that, hey, we're tired of practicing white supremacy, so let's start to eliminate the non-white people of the planet, because we now don't see a use for white supremacy anymore. We're tired now.
Well, then they have the choice. They have that choice right now, instantly.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, because they are in the supreme position. So they can choose to do justice right now. I say that in every talk. I'm saying that directly and indirectly. The white people who believe in white supremacy can make the decision to do justice right this minute. And they know how. They have all the technical ability and all like that. They know more about the concept of justice than I do. I mean, in its essence, in its practical way, and how to go about producing it. They know a lot. I mean, they talk about justice all the time, but they have no interest in producing it, because their record has shown that. But say if they decide right this minute, we're tired of running a world based on non-justice. What is non-justice? It's mistreating people. That's all it is. We're tired of mistreating people for fun and for glory and for material gain. Let's just scrap that whole business of getting fun out of mistreating people, so we can feel good about ourselves, which is what racism really is. Mistreating people so we can feel good about ourselves, so we can stay on that constant cocaine high, you might say, because that's what racism is. It's a high, like being on cocaine, like being on a drug. Racism is a drug, okay? So if they decide that they're not going to do it anymore, they got two choices. If you're going to replace racism, there's two things you can do. You can do it by practicing justice, which means guaranteeing that no person is mistreated, and guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most will get the most constructive help. They can do that. They can do that instantly. I mean, like in the next 15 minutes. That's not a long, drawn-out process. They know how to do it. They don't want to do it. Or they can take another option. Just kill all the non-white people, because we're just tired of practicing racism, but we don't want them to be in the way of our next project. So let's just kill all these people of color. Just kill them. They can't defend themselves against us. We're supreme, you know. But then they will be fighting, like I said a few minutes before. They won't be fighting us then. They'll be fighting whatever created us. See what I mean?
Yeah.
And that you know, I would defend myself as an individual the best way I could. You know, if a white person just told me, well, Fuller, you know, hey, we're have decided, we had a meeting last night with all the rest of the white supremacists in the world, and we just decided that people like you got to go. Sorry about that, old buddy. I mean, but you can run. We're gonna make a sport out of it, like we make a sport out of everything. We'll give you about 30 days to try to find a place to hide, and then we're going to come and round you up and kill you. How about that? Whether you agree to it or not, we have already made that decision, because after all, we are supreme. Well, if they told me that, some white person that I know personally just told me that, it ain't personal, fella, it's business. We're going to get rid of all of you. But we'll make a sport out of it. We'll give you 30 days, all you black people, to find a place where you can go where we can't come and kill you. Good luck with that.
Wow.
But after 30 days, we're coming after you.
Mm-hmm.
And they just do it almost like a handshake deal or whatnot. If a person told me that with a mild manner, not in anger, because it's business. Racism is business. It's not personal, and it always has been business. So I would just say, well, I'm going to try to find a place to hide and stay out of the way of you, because I don't want to be exterminated. So, well, fella, that's what I'm going to do. Sorry about that, buddy, but hey, after 30 days, for 30 days, I mean, I'll do a lot of things for you. I'll help you, do whatever. But after that 30 days, I'm coming after you, and I'm going to kill you when I find you.
Wow. Mr. Fuller, at this particular juncture, you need to speak about your book or books and how we can get them.
Yeah, you can go to producejustice.com. Now, some people have said they'd have some problems with that, but just keep at it. I don't know what you have to do on the computer to do that. Different people have to go about doing it different ways, but it can be done. And the book is available at producejustice.com. This program that I'm on now is even advertised at that website. Producejustice.com will tell you everything you need to know to get the basic textbook and the additional book, which is just an additional volume to the basic textbook, called the Compensatory Counter-Racist Word Guide. How to use words, how not to use words, what words to ask questions about. And there's a lot about that. What words to ask questions about when other people use them. And you can get both of these volumes by going to producejustice.com.
All righty. producejustice.com. Okay, talktainmentradio.com. Listen, we go where you go, and all you have to do is download the talktainmentradio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we are discussing politics and different aspects of it. That is the sixth area of people activity in the system of racism and white supremacy, which Neely Fuller has just or is talking about. You can get in contact with the show by going to, because we are now broadcasting live right at this moment, facebook.com/talktainment. That's facebook.com/talktainment. Or you can simply dial in by dialing 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby @gmail.com, and maybe we will get to your Gmails. Mr. Fuller, the rapper T.I. was allegedly to have said, to eliminate racism, you have to hit them where it hurts. Number one, killing them, which is, I guess, amounts to war, and then to take over the money, and then to take over the money supply. These are the two things that the white supremacists respect. Then an example was, since the police, race soldiers go up to killing black folks, it was suggested that if there was a retaliation for them walking up to a car or choking somebody or shooting somebody down where they got killed, then maybe they wouldn't do that. But these were just suggestions that were made. What say you on that?
Well, the question is kind of convoluted, the way that I understand it, but if I understand the question, I've outlined all about violence, nonviolence, and counterviolence, mostly under the war section, and but all through the book, I have mentioned it in one form or another. The entire book is dealing with violence, because the entire book is about racism, which is just a form of violence against people. It violates people. The word violence comes from the word violate. And most of the people on this planet are being violated by the white supremacists, because that's what the white supremacists do. That's how they have set up, world government, based on being in violation of the concept of justice. And they revel in it. They embrace it. They celebrate it. And so the best way of handling it is the entire textbook for victims. See, this is what you have to understand. It's a lot of ingredients. It's 9 areas of activity. I mean, and all of them are supposed to be designed to counter this violent situation that we have. And so that's the best way that I have to broad brush it that way.
Okay.
Answer to the question.
Okay.
But the entire textbook, you pick out things as an individual that will help you to function just every minute of the day.
Okay.
Because it's all about thinking, speaking, and acting.
Yes.
What does the individual do? So that's how you handle it, your circumstances.
Okay.
And when you get to anything dealing with what you call hardcore counterbalance and all like that, I don't talk about that on air because it's too involved.
Okay, you don't
So
talk
that's
about
in the war section.
Okay, that's in the war section.
Right.
Okay, now, recently, a few days ago, a white Australian woman walked up on a police in, I think it was Minneapolis, Minnesota, and she was shot dead. Just shot. I understand that she had called in. There was some type of domestic violence. She called in and approached the police car, and on the passenger side came up, and then she was shot. What are your thoughts on that?
My thoughts on that is, an injustice could have been done, or justice could have been done. I don't know enough about it, because the information about it is very vague. And that's the one thing that the code always talks about, and that is the codified process, rather. And that is, be sure of what it is that you're saying and what you're saying it about. And first of all, the first order of business in trying to produce a product called justice is to do what? Get the correct information. And I read a little bit about what happened there. It sounds very vague. It certainly sounds very, very strange. And it sounds, on the surface, like something that I wouldn't recommend be done under those circumstances. You have a person that is dead, and that's always serious business.
Yes. Okay.
Anytime one person kills another person, it's one thing that everybody in the world should know instantly. And I want to repeat this. Anytime, anywhere on this planet, one person or group of people, or whatever you want to call it, kills another person, everybody on the planet should instantly know 2 things. Who did it and why.
Okay.
And then we work from there.
Okay.
That's the first thing you want to know.
All right.
Who did the killing and why was that killing done?
Okay.
And there is no exceptions to that rule.
No exceptions. Okay.
There's no such thing as supposed to be a secret killing. There's stuff about mystery killing, who done it, and all like that. That's white supremacist glorification of death.
Okay.
That kind of nonsense should stop. And that's not the kind of world that we should want, ever.
Right. Okay.
Every person that kills another person should stand up and say, yes, I did it. Otherwise, you shouldn't do it.
Mm-hmm.
And you should give the reason why you did it. And everybody should know that within, the minute that you do it. I'm not talking about the next day or the next week. Everybody in the world should know.
Stand by your work, huh?
Yes, stand by your work.
Okay.
Stand by your work.
Yeah.
Give your reason for having done it.
Okay. Page 244, we got to try to answer at least one of these questions. It says, what is the best and correct thing to do if the white supremacists of the known universe decide to kill all of the non-white people of the known universe? What is your answer to that?
What is that question now?
What is the best and correct thing to do if the white supremacists of the known universe decide to kill all of the non-white people of the known universe?
Oh, that's on page 244.
Yes, sir.
Protect yourself the best way that you can and seek help from the creator of the known universe. We are created people. All things that you're looking at, rocks, birds, I didn't create them. People don't create anything. I don't know of a person that has ever created anything. Sometimes people will use the term, this is one of my creations. But if you look at it logically, no. What is creation? Creation means the very, very beginning of all of the molecules that went into your so-called quote-unquote creation.
Okay.
Okay? So what do people do if they don't create? They arrange what is already created.
Okay. Now,
Right.
with that being said, then, you said just a moment ago to protect yourself. What if protecting yourself means that you have to take them out? What you take them out?
Oh, you always oppose an unjust aggressor.
Okay.
If they directly try to come after you, sure. I mean, like I gave the illustration earlier in this program. You know, the fellow approaches me and say, we're going to exterminate all you people, Fuller, including you, and we're giving you 30 days. Okay, if that's what you're going to do. You say, yeah, old buddy, that's what I'm going to do. I mean, you know, I've tolerated you all this time, but you people got to go, including you, Fuller. Okay, so you're going to give me 30 days to stay here, and then you come after me to kill me. Yep, that's what I'm going to do. You know, no hard feelings about it. That's just the way it is. That's the way it works. That's what I've decided to do. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what I'm going to do. When you come after me to kill me, I'm going to try to protect myself by killing you.
Okay.
How about that? Say, yeah, well, we expect you to do that, Fuller, but hey, good luck with that, because we got more hardware than you ever will have.
Okay.
You know, in fact, the hardware that you're going to use to protect yourself from me, we already got something better. So we know you're going to lose.
Okay.
I say, well, I know that. I understand white supremacy. I know that, but I'm still do the best I can.
Best you can.
Just like the little squirrel that runs from you and you try to kill it. It does the best it can. If you're out there trying to kill that cat that's out there in the alley, I mean, that you've had enough of. So you go out there with a hatchet or a knife or some rat poison or whatever, and you try to kill the cat. If you chase that cat down, there's one thing you'll notice about the cat. The cat will run, because the cat figures that maybe you got more power.
Yeah.
But that cat will, if he's cornered, jump on the top of your head.
He sure
Okay?
will.
And I'll do the same thing.
Okay.
All right?
Hey, when you hear the music, you know what that is. Our first hour is about to come to a close. So let's say this. TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio, the way it should be heard. Stay tuned for the second hour of the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com. Thanks for listening to the first hour.
Thanks for listening to the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTainmentRadio.com, the world's greatest radio.
The most important question in all racial matters is why. One should always ask it.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You've got the power. The world's greatest radio. TalkTainmentRadio.com. Talktainment Radio, worldwide sound. TalkTainmentRadio.com. We give you a reason to come.
The world's greatest radio.
We give you a reason to stay.
Radio, the way it should be heard.
You got the power.
The views and opinions expressed are those of the host and guest and not necessarily those of TalkTainmentRadio.com, the management, the staff, or K&E World Network, LLC.
live call-in talk show. Dial 1-877-932-9766 and join the conversation here on TalkTameRadio.com.
This is the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller, heard exclusively on TalkTameRadio.com, the world's greatest radio. Radio the way it should be heard. And now, Mr. Neely Fuller.
If you do not understand white supremacy, which is racism, what it is and how it works, everything else that you understand will only confuse you. Only confuse you. Only confuse you.
All right, welcome back to hour number 2 on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. And guess what? We are broadcasting live on Facebook. That's right, Facebook.com/Talktainment. And many people are viewing us. Now, some are not. I don't know why, but you can get us right there live on Facebook.com/Talktainment. And then there you go. You can see us operating in the studio. So, yeah, anyway, Talktainment, we go where you go on the world's greatest radio. And now you are now in touch with the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., who is on the line right now. And this is radio the way it should be heard. We are in our 8th installment, I believe, of the 6th area of people activity, which is politics, according to Mr. Fuller, in the system of racism and white supremacy. So if you have any questions, you can call in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numeral number 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY @gmail.com. And your question will go into question rotation. And while we're here, let's just go to one of the Gmails before we go to the second question on page 244 that we were discussing before we had to break it up in the second hour, which is the donate hour, by the way. And, you know, even though the donations are over with, you can still go to the home page and hit that donate button and put in some cash so we can continue. Anyway, which is tax deductible. Okay, anyway, listen to this one. It says, this is from Dr. Burton. He says, I like the new Facebook Live for the show, being able to put a face to the voice in the studio. Thank you, Dr. Burton. Anyway, it says, Mr. Fuller, I hope you can answer my question as best and possibly as you can. As an elder who observed and witnessed more than most of us, and it's this: why are African Americans so loud? Now, let me give my compensatory definition of loud. Doing or saying things that attracts attention of others. And in our case, we tend to talk loud, dress loud, blast loud music from our home or cars, and usually these days of self-destructive and demeaning nature. We worship loud, eat loud, watch movies loud, and sometimes celebrate loud. So where does this come from, Mr. Fuller? Can we blame white supremacy for this, or is it part of our DNA and culture of predicating our encounters with white supremacy? Thank you for taking my question. I'll get around to it at some point. Mr. Fuller?
According to compensatory logic, we never stop being babies. Babies are loud. That's the answer.
Okay.
We are babies.
Babies.
In the system of white supremacy. We are not mature people at all. We are still little children and big children. But we are little children that have grown into big children, those that call ourselves so-called adults. We never reach maturity. You can't reach maturity in the system of white supremacy. So we have all of the characteristics of people who are in a childlike position, and we act like children. Children on a playground, and we try to make a playground out of everything, just like children do. I mean, things that are real serious and whatnot, we make a plaything out of it because we're not mature, nowhere near maturity. The white supremacists are not mature either, but they are more mature than we are. That's why they are dominant over us.
Yes.
They are people who are serious about serious things. We don't even know how to be serious about anything except something that is silly.
Or destructive.
We're silly about things that are serious, and serious about things that are silly. That's in the textbook. We're childlike. We're infantile. We are, the white supremacists, illegitimate children. They are our parents. And they, keep us in an unruly state. And, we're just running around just turning over things and breaking things and making noise. And we even glorify the expression. We have an expression that we invented. Let's make some noise. Let's make some noise. Let's make some noise. What is noise? Noise is chaos. All right? You can't get anything out of noise. You're supposed to be taking noise and making what? Music. What's the difference between music and noise, according to compensatory logic? Music is when that's a sound. And when you hear music is when you hear that sound, it makes you think about doing something constructive. Noise is when you hear a sound, it makes you think about doing something non-constructive. There's only two types of sound in the universe, according to logic, compensatory logic. Music and noise. Just two types of sound. Music and noise. What is the difference between music and noise? Noise is when you think about doing something, when you hear it, when you hear that sound. When you hear that sound, you know it's noise if you think about doing something non-constructive. And if you hear a sound, S-O-U-N-D, and you think about doing something constructive, that sound is music. That's the sound of a waterfall, the sound of the rain on a roof, the sound of a storm coming, the sound of a truck passing by. What does it make you think about? Do you think about doing something constructive or non-constructive? Because you're always thinking.
Always.
So it's the sounds that are going on around you. When somebody comes by, and you're sitting there, you hear somebody talking out in the street, and you hear a couple of black people on their cell phones. Or one black person talking on the cell phone, and that black person is talking loud, and that black person is saying, MF this, MF that, MF, MF, MF. Now, that's sound, S-O-U-N-D. That's what you're hearing. Now, does that sound make you think about something constructive or non-constructive? There's no such thing as in between, because your mind is going to either think about something constructive or non-constructive. Now, you're probably thinking, you might say that you're thinking constructively when you say, I wish that fellow would stop talking like that, because I'm not getting anything out of that inspires me to do anything constructive. And I don't think he's getting anything out of it, his own voice, that's going to inspire him to do anything constructive.
You mean by the use of that term, MF?
Well, then you look at the term and say, what is that term good for? If you think about the definition of the term, what is the definition of the term MF? And what is this supposed to mean? And is this supposed to inspire someone to do something what? Constructive or non-constructive? Because all day long, just like it's two types of sound, it's two types of action. Constructive, non-constructive.
Mm-hmm. Well, wait a minute now. Hold it. So if somebody uses that term as a term of endearment, because I've seen brothers walk up to each other and say that and grab hands and hug each other, embrace and all that, but then I've seen it the other way where that was said and it was fighting time. So what do you mean?
Well, are they the best terms to use?
Okay, I get that. Okay.
You know what I mean?
Okay.
There are things that are constructive and things that are non-constructive.
Okay, all right.
But now, if you're talking about words, are there some words in some circumstances better than others?
Okay. All right.
And so you try to always do what? According to compensatory logic. Out of things that are worse or things that are best, and then there are things that are in between.
Okay.
All right? But everything is either going in the direction of being worse or being best.
I got you. Okay.
All right? So you want to always pick out whatever you do and say to lead in the direction where you are going in the best direction.
Best direction, okay.
In everything. That's compensatory logic.
Okay, I got
Presumably, that's what everybody needs.
Okay. 1-877-932-9766 is the number you can call to get in contact with the show. You can also look at us now because we are broadcasting live on Facebook.com/Talktainment. And also you can Gmail me at the numeral 7, Mr. Bobby, BOBBY, at gmail.com. Question number 2 on page 44. Mr. Fuller says, during the existence of white supremacy, racism, what are the most direct ways to stop non-white people from unjustly killing or maiming each other and or from seriously mistreating each other?
Well, the best way for non-white people to start as a start from keeping non-white people from cursing each other, gossiping about each other, doing anything that is non-constructive toward each other or anybody really, is don't make contact with people unless you have a constructive plan for doing so. Now, sometimes, all day long you're running into people, and whatnot, and making contact with people, but don't make deliberate contact with anybody. Don't pick up a phone and call anybody unless you have a constructive reason for doing so. To start with that, we all got cell phones now in the Northwestern Hemisphere for the most part. We spend a lot of time on them. If you don't have anything constructive to say on that cell phone, resist the urge to make that call, period. Even if that cell phone stays silent for a month, don't pick it up and call anybody unless you have a constructive reason for doing so. Meaning at the end of that conversation, something constructive is going to happen that involves yourself or someone else, or the combination of yourself with someone else. One of those three. But it's got to have a constructive result.
Okay.
No more what you call just, hey, man, what's up? See what I mean?
Yeah.
Eliminate that altogether.
Eliminate that.
See, there are tons of things in what we call black culture that should be done away with right this minute.
And that's one of them, huh?
And that's one of them.
Okay. All right.
And that's the main one.
Okay.
And everything else will flow from that, because then you'll be You'll be left alone with your thoughts.
Okay.
And that's what a lot of black people, including myself, need to. We need that. We need that. We need to be left alone with the thoughts that we have and try to come up with some better thoughts than what we have had.
Okay.
Because what we have had has not worked.
Okay. TalkTainmentRadio.com is a 24/7, no charge, worldwide broadcasting facility with hosts delivering on various topics such as news and lifestyle, sports, law, health, wellness, religion, and what we're on today, politics. Now, here's several shows that I would like to share with you. One is called Senior Agenda. The other one is called The Voice of the Pink Pearl. And one of my favorites is New Money. You really need to understand what money is. But anyway, all these shows are exclusive to TalkTainmentRadio.com, and all you have to do is go to the TalkTainmentRadio.com app and click on, on the homepage rather, and click on programs, and there you will find the scheduled times of these shows, in addition to that donate button on the right-hand side where the telephone number is. But anyway, all that is from Talktainment Radio, and this is radio the way it should be heard. My name is Mr. Bobby. I am the co-host on the compensatory concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr., and we are now broadcasting live on Facebook.com/Talktainment. That's Facebook.com/Talktainment. And you can actually view the program as we are doing it. Mistakes at all, you can view it. But you can also call in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, Mr. Bobby, at gmail.com, and we'll try to get your Gmail on. Now, before we go on, let's take a phone call. Go ahead, caller. What line are we on? Line number 1? Okay, line number 1. You are now on with Mr. Fuller. What is your question?
Yes, good morning, gentlemen. As always, peace and blessings. Compensatory constructive action meeting this Saturday, 2800 St. Louis Drive, Baltimore. Compensatory constructive action meeting, 2800 St. Louis Drive, Baltimore. I do everything compensatory and constructive. I pledge allegiance to the book. That's my lifestyle. I preach it. I teach it as much as possible. It has bettered my life so much better just being constructive and just getting away from all the foolishness. I lost a lot of friends, but at the same time, I guess they really weren't my friends. I'm constructive, and they don't want to be around me. So, like I say, all week long, I'm on board. I appreciate you, gentlemen. I always listen, and I always tell as many people as I can. Thank you.
All righty. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. Okay, Mr. Fuller, let's complete this. Page 244, the last question. It says, what is the basic and correct thing to say in regards to the unjust killing of non-white people by non-white people and the killing of non-white people by white people because of the system of white supremacy, which is racism?
Okay, what you say to that is, about all this killing, as long as white supremacy exists, there's reason to believe that white people in general will not be seriously concerned about non-white people being killed unless and until white people are likewise being killed in a similar or compensatory manner.
Okay, wait a minute. Now we in the first hour we talked about what T.I. said, but now I'm seeing this answer here, what you just said here in the book, and will not be seriously concerned about non-white people being killed unless and until white people are likewise being killed in a similar manner. Now, what's the difference?
Well, there is no difference.
Okay,
basically.
All right. So then was T.I.
See, the question is, what is the basic and correct thing to say?
Okay.
See what I mean? You know,
that's right. It did say that. You're right.
In regards to the unjust killing of non-white people by non-white people, you know, give Chicago as an example, give the Congo as an example, give Rwanda as an example. These are non-white people killing non-white people. These are black people killing black people, wholesale, over and over again.
Yes.
What do you say about that? And also, what do you say about the unjust killing of non-white people by white people? All right? So you say as long as white supremacy exists, there's reason to believe that white people in general will not be seriously concerned about non-white people being killed unless and until white people are likewise being killed in a similar or compensatory manner. That's the answer. In other words, the white supremacist system is set up so white people are concerned only when white people are dying in large numbers. All right? Then that's when they really pay attention. But as long as anybody else is being killed, or if white people are being killed in defense of the system of white supremacy, they're not concerned about killing. You know, the white supremacists really enjoy killing of all kinds. They like killing things.
Yes.
This is why even when they don't when they don't have to kill things, they kill things. This is why even today, 2017, they'll take a high-powered rifle and go out in the forest and hire a black person to carry the rifle. And they'll look for what? They'll look for a rhinoceros to sneak up on Now, you don't have to sneak up on a rhinoceros. You can find a rhinoceros, in your airplane,
Yeah.
From 20,000 feet up. And you can find where all a herd of rhino are, all right? But, the white supremacists have very strange minds. They don't want to do that. They say, I can do that. I can electronically locate every rhino on the planet in about 15 minutes, I can seek it out. I know what their habitats are. I know where to look. I know what they thrive off of and what they, rhino cannot survive in the desert. I know better than to look for a rhino in the desert. You look for a camel in the desert. They know that. They've researched all of this, okay? They're very smart people. But what they'll do is put on a fancy uniform and get a whole lot of fancy equipment and get a high-powered rifle with a scope and sneak up on a poor, helpless, defenseless rhino just trying to find some food, or just sitting there asleep, and sneak up on it and shoot it. And then cut off his head and put it over a mantelpiece and call themselves what? Civilized.
Wow. All righty. Woo! Speaking about this, we're going to page 246 now. A question came up, and it's a very important question, and the answer is two. You said, what should you expect to receive from your efforts to end racism and or to produce justice? And you gave the 4 Ds. You said, according to compensatory counter-racist logic, you should, for the most part, expect to receive, number 1, disapproval, number 2, disappointment, number 3, discomfort, and number 4, death. Could you explain that?
What should you expect to receive from your efforts to end racism? Or if you're trying to produce justice, which is really the reason for getting rid of racism, is to produce something better, and that would be justice, what do you expect to receive from your efforts from doing this? And I have listed 4 things on page 246. If you're trying to get rid of racism and trying to produce justice, you can expect this to happen. Disapproval, and you're going to get that from both black people and white people, non-white people and white people. You're going to get disapproval, and you can expect to get that. You can expect to get disappointment. In other words, you're going to be disappointed. Just every move you make on the job and all like that, you're trying to help to produce justice, trying to help to get rid of racism, you're going to just be disappointed in most of your results in the system of racism. And you can expect that. And number 3, you can expect to get what? Discomfort. In other words, people are going to make you very uncomfortable. You go to a meeting and you start talking about justice, you start talking about racism, particularly if you talk about justice in association with racism, both black people and white people. First thing is going to happen is that everybody's going to get uncomfortable.
Yes.
And so they're going to make you uncomfortable because they're uncomfortable. All right? So you can expect that. And last but not least, number 4, you keep pushing it like Fuller's trying to do. You can expect to get killed. That goes with the territory.
Wow.
That last one.
Yeah.
Just like in the movie Saving Private Ryan. I mean, in the sniper, what did he say? I keep pointing out that particular scene.
Yes, sir.
Of course, that's a lesson there. I mean, this sniper asked his captain, he says, "Captain, this battle we're fixing to go into, I don't think this is a very good idea, and we don't have to do it, and so I don't feel good about it." And the captain asked him a question. When is the last time you felt good about anything? Now, what he meant by that was, you're a soldier on a battlefield. This is not about feeling good. It doesn't have anything to do with how you feel. It has to do with getting the mission of this battle done. So you can expect this discomfort and you can expect death in the business of countering white supremacy. That goes with the territory, ladies and gentlemen, all over the world. Now, you can be uncomfortable about it, and you're supposed to be, I guess. I am. But you can expect disapproval, disappointment, discomfort, and death. That's what you can expect out of trying to get rid of racism and produce injustice, because we're on a battlefield, and that's what you should expect on any battlefield.
Okay. Dr. Perriman wrote this, Mr. Fuller. He said about 90% of everything you say is the truth, and nobody can dispute that. But when you say that all of us are Toms and sellouts because we're breathing and thus keeping the system of white supremacy alive, no. For one thing, you're not. You're not. You've written a comprehensive text and speak weekly and doing all you can to end it. And so are those that support your work and who are also on the plantation or prison system. We may be doing it inadvertently, but never on purpose. We do it reluctantly and try to spend as little in helping to maintain the system. See, those who are the true sellouts are in part responsible for why we're in the messed up shape that we're in. Sure, the white supremacists are the main culprits, but these Sambos also play a part. They're the types who, if you and me were trying to plan a prison escape that would benefit them as much as us, would go to the warden and tell them of our full plan and in turn get us all put in solitary confinement, if not killed on the spot. So I just wanted to point that out, the difference, because I think callers get confused when you put it in such absolutes. Mr. Fuller, your thoughts?
I choose to put it in absolutes because that's the way I see it. Now, it may not be that way. So, under VGQ, Victims Guaranteed Qualification, any person who is non-white, what is VGQ? Victims Guaranteed Qualification means you're qualified to say what is just said if you're a person of color. Fuller just gives opinions in his book.
Okay.
My opinion is that we are all, and I don't use the word sellout because I don't have anything to sell. In other words, you have something to sell only if you have something.
Okay.
I can't sell black people because I don't own any black people. So I can't sell black people to anybody. Black people have an owner, and the owners of black people on this planet are white supremacists. So I don't have any authority over any white, non-white person, or any white person, or any person, including myself, on this planet. I have the authority to be able to kill myself, but I don't have the authority to do anything else. You know, I am in that weakened position, so I can't sell anything because I don't have anything to sell. Anything that I happen to have comes from the white supremacists. They give me everything that I have,
okay,
including the ability to breathe.
Gotcha.
You know.
TalkTameRadio.com. Listen, we go where you go, and you can check us out on 94.1 WGRN. The podcasts are available, and all you have to do is download the TalkTameRadio.com app to your cell or to your tablet. That's radio the way it should be heard. This is Mr. Bobby. I am Mr. Bobby, the co-host on the Compensatory Concept with Mr. Neely Fuller Jr. Our subject today is politics. This is the 8th installment of the politics in the system of racism and white supremacy. And we've been taking your calls, answering your Gmails, and of course now you can actually look at the show being produced live on Facebook. That's right. Go to facebook.com/Talktainment, and then you'll be able to see us. Many people have made comment on it, and thank you very much for those comments, and thank you for viewing and listening in. We have Mr. Neely Fuller on the line, live from Washington, D.C., And you can speak with him if you would like by calling 1-877-932-9766, or you can Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com, and we can go on from there. Let me do a Gmail, and then we'll go to questions again. This comes from Dr. Spencer, and he says this, Mr. Fuller, I was wondering, why do you think there is an animosity between black Americans and African people? Aren't all from the same place? Aren't we all African people? I hate when black Americans, when Americans say, I hate when black Americans say, I'm not African, or I hate Africans. Mr. Fuller?
Well, all black people, all victims of racism, one of the first things that the white supremacists do is teach all non-white people to hate themselves. And that is mandatory. You got to do that if you're going to control them. If people have a lot of self-esteem and whatnot, that means that they'll start thinking about doing constructive things. But if people don't have what you call self-esteem, a value of themselves, they will look around for anybody that looks like them and devalue them. That's just the way it works. That's the logical process. The white supremacists understand that that's how the mind works. So naturally, they got a term probably invented by the white supremacists, pot calling the kettle black. Okay? Here's a black person calling another black person, you black, there's something wrong with you. So therefore, something wrong with me, but there ain't as much wrong with me as it is with you. So if you blacker than I am, or you're not as black as I am, or whatever, I'm just going to find a reason, to say something about you that's derogatory, even though I am guilty of the same thing. You're doing the same thing I'm doing. You're acting the same way I act, or you might do it, or you look the way that I look. And I can't stand you. I can't stand myself. I don't like my mother. I don't like my father. I don't like anybody that resembles me. And I just don't like nothing, really. And I don't know what I like or what I'm supposed to like. In other words, we have been driven insane, all right? People who can't think logically. That's what insanity is. The white supremacists say if you're going to dominate people, you control their minds. And you have them value or devalue things according to what you set up. So, hey, if all of you people don't look like, if, say, the black females, for instance, if they don't all look like Barbie, if they don't all get out here and get some skin lightener and put some blonde hair on and all like that, and get some blue eyes from somewhere,
yeah.
Hey, you're a basket case. You're some kind of creature that never should have existed. You have no business on this planet. But since you're here, we'll just tolerate you the way that we tolerate the roaches. And, and in fact, in the 1940s, a lady told me, I was from, had sort of like a country background, and people left the country town where I was from, and they traveled. And a lady that had traveled kind of far and wide, a little bit anyway, she came back through there, and she said, I said, well, they always got nicknames for black people. So what are the nicknames for black people where you have been this past summer? She said, oh, yes. She said, I was intending to tell you that. They call us roaches.
Wow. Okay. Roaches.
Yeah. So you see a bunch of black people, you're looking at a bunch of roaches.
Okay.
That was in the 1940s.
That was in the 40s. Okay. Okay. Let's see. You can look at us live right now by going to facebook.com/talktainment, and we're up on the screen, or you can dial in by calling 1-877-932-9766, or Gmail me at the numero 7, MrBobby@gmail.com. Before we go on, Mr. Fuller, could you just speak about your book for about a minute or two here?
The book is entitled The United Independent Compensatory Code System Concept. That's a bunch of words that mean absolutely nothing until you actually look in the book. And it explains in detail what each one of those words mean. United, what does united mean? What does independent mean? What does compensatory mean? And code/system/concept, what that means. But a supplementary title, a complementary title, of meaning the same thing basically, but in another way, it is a compensatory counter-racist code, a textbook, workbook for thought, for speech, and for action for victims of racism. And racism is described as the same as white supremacy. Sometimes people say white supremacy and racism. Well, I have modified that greatly by saying white supremacy is racism. You don't separate the two. It's not white supremacy and racism, or racism and white supremacy, or racism being a form of white supremacy or something, or white supremacy being a form of racism. No, it's just one racism. Race is racism, and a racist is a white supremacist, and a white supremacist is a racist. No one else is or can be a racist in a system of white supremacy other than a white supremacist. So when you say white supremacy, you're saying racism. Racism is white supremacy. Underline is. There's no other form of racism other than white supremacy. And the book is directed to individuals about some suggestions about what to think about it, and then what to speak about it, the words that you use and the words that you don't use, and last but not least, what to do about it as an individual person. The book is directed to individual people, because if you solve the problems of each individual, this is the logic, you solve the problems of all individuals collectively.
Yeah.
That's the logic.
Yeah, I'm sure.
And I say that's the missing link. That's why I wrote the book.
Yeah.
It's directed to individuals, because we don't have anything directed to the individual. Most things that are written when they say, well, we as black people got to come together and do this, that, and the other. Well, what do we mean by come together? That's even brought up in the book.
Right.
So you got to have a code. So that's what I'm trying to invent.
And then
you have a code for the individual where you solve your problems minute by minute, each and every day, even when nobody else is around.
Okay. And then you have the word guide, which I'm also showing on the screen right now. Could you speak about that for a minute?
Yes, the word guide is what words to use, what words not to use in a system of white supremacy. What words, last but not least, to how to respond to words used by other people, what questions to ask. That would be your response.
Okay.
You want to go into a question mode when people are using words in such a manner that you are confused by what they're saying. And you cannot have confusion if you're going to have problem solving. Problem solving is all about what? All about getting rid of confusion.
And where can we get this
at? Both
of
these volumes by going to producejustice.com.
Okay.
Most people get the basic book, and that's what I strongly recommend. But if you want the word guide too, which is an extension of the basic book,
right,
you can get that too. Go to producejustice.com.
Okay, and one more thing before we move on. The book the previous book is still valid, is that correct?
Yes, the previous book. Some people say, well, I got that 1984 volume, but, I've been holding off on getting the other volume, and maybe I should get this other volume because this volume is obsolete. This book is obsolete that I have, 1984, okay? But that's not true. If you got that volume, I'd recommend that you get the other books, but if you don't have it or you don't want to get it, you can still use that other 1984 volume that you've had probably for years sitting on your shelf. You can revisit it
Okay.
Because that material is still valid.
Okay.
And you can still use it, because it's all, after all of these volumes are for what? Thinking, speaking, and acting for the individual to solve whatever your problem is of today.
All righty. Very good. Thank you so much. Okay, now let's go to the questions. This is from Dr. Curtis. And he says this, Mr. Fuller. He said, from what I understand, Mr. Fuller, you are over 70 years of age and have concluded from you that you are here in this lifetime to find a solution to racism, white supremacy, and produce justice. I own the code book and the word guide and follow most all of your broadcasts. My question is, Mr. Fuller, when you pass away, or as you call it, the big nap, what plan do you have in place to continue spreading your code book and word guide? I would assume this broadcast may or may not end, but I would find it of greater value to hear it from you, how you would like your books to be sold, and from who you would produce new copies or have the authority to do so. How you would like radio hosts using your code book and word guide conducted by you. How you would like your past broadcasts to be or not to be spread without your consent anymore by you. And then lastly, I find your code book effective, but I think it would be helpful for you to tell others in the present how you would like your work to be shared in the future. Thank you, Dr. Curtis.
Well, if the race problem isn't solved when I leave this earth, then the whole universe is still blank pages that need to be filled in. That's to be filled in by the people here. I'm just trying to fill in my little spot so people can just pick up my book. But the main thing that I emphasize, even now, I don't, because it's not logical for people to do so. It's not effective. It's not correct to do so. And that is to mix up what Neely Fuller says with what somebody else has said. All right? Always just make the distinction. You can always repeat what Neely Fuller says, but say that Neely Fuller says this. This is his shabby view, if you want to look at it that way. I heard about that guy Neely Fuller. And this is what he had to say about this. And so you just read or disseminate whatever Neely Fuller said and say Neely Fuller said this. Now, Neely Fuller having said that, I think I can say something better than what Neely Fuller said. And that's what you should always be trying to do, because that's what I try to do, say something better than what already has been said. See, we got to stop this thing of trying to reinvent the wheel.
Yes.
But you can always refer to, and I do that, I refer to what Mark Twain says. I use his name quite a bit, and some things from Frederick Douglass. But I say Frederick Douglass said this. This is not Neely Fuller who said this, whether I agree or disagree. This is what Frederick Douglass said about this subject.
Okay.
And then I will read it word for word, what Frederick Douglass said. Then I will say, now this is what Mark Twain said about the same subject that Frederick Douglass was talking about.
You're making it plain.
And then on and on and on.
Yes, sir.
And this is what Malcolm X said.
Yes, sir.
And then you can say, and this is what Neely Fuller said, and then you can cap it by saying, and you should be saying, okay, I told you what all these other dudes said. Now I'm going to tell you what I say.
Right.
See what I mean?
Yes, sir.
And that's how it's supposed to be done. That's the United Independent. That's the core of the United Independent process.
All right.
You just make a distinction between what one person is saying and what another person is saying, and then have the listener evaluate all of the saying.
Okay. All righty. Now, I would like to get to these two questions before the show ends. This is the first one. What is the? This is on page 250 of the expanded, revised expanded edition. It says, "What is the correct thing to say when someone says that racism, white supremacy, is not going to end, and that non-white people should stop worrying about it and talking about it and simply do what needs to be done in spite of it.
That's on page what now?
250.
250.
Yes, sir.
And it says what you should say.
What is the correct thing to say when someone says that racism, white supremacy, is not going to end, and that non-white people should stop worrying about it and talking about it and simply do what needs to be done in spite of it?
Oh, yes, and the answer I have here, I see it in 250, what I've written, it says, to say, what you say is, to say that racism will not end is to say that non-white people will always be subject to it. That's the logical thing to say. If you're going to say that racism is never going to end, you just say that, well, if it's not going to end, the correct thing to say is that non-white people will always be subject to racism. And to say that non-white people will always be subject to it is to say that what needs to be done cannot be done. Now, you can say that, but then I have a note here that says what needs to be done is to establish and maintain justice. So I have told people sometimes when they say in discussions that people feel uncomfortable about talking about racism, or they're just tired of talking about it.
Yes.
And this is understandable. And that's correct. So people have asked me, so what do you do when people say they don't want to talk about racism, or they're tired of talking about it? Or you might be around some white people who, everything is going south, as you might say, when the discussion starts about race. And you're in the company of white people talking about it. Well, what you do in a compensatory way, you do what works best. You talk about the production of justice, which most people at least feel comfortable enough talking about it up to a point.
Up to a point.
At least.
Yes.
But you start off by saying, okay, we're not going to talk about anything except producing a product called justice. How about that? Is everybody on board with that? Because if you're going to talk to people, usually the best way to go about talking to people is talk about something that they don't mind talking about. And most people don't mind talking about justice.
Okay.
Because most people will say that they believe in justice.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So that's what you do.
Mm-hmm.
You just don't talk about racism.
Okay.
You talk about producing justice. So then you start off by doing what? Since you're talking about justice, you define, and I suggest you use a compensatory definition, justice is guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated. That's number one.
Uh-huh.
And number two, guaranteeing that the person that needs help the most gets the most constructive help.
Yes, sir.
And this works real good, particularly since we're in the area of politics, that it spills over into the area of labor. That applies on the job for sure.
Yes, sir.
Talk about justice on the job. Don't talk about racism. That stirs up, more problems than you want. You don't want to make more problems.
Yes, sir.
All right? Talk about justice. So when you get everybody on board saying, yeah, they're all for justice, then you define what it is, and it'll take you right where you need to go in that discussion.
Okay.
Because what is it? It's guaranteeing that nobody's mistreated. Now, racism is all about mistreatment. So when you're talking about producing justice, you're talking about ending racism automatically. But you're not mentioning racism. See how that works?
Yes.
That's the logical process.
Okay.
And you're getting better results.
Okay.
And you're also talking about helping the person that needs help the most. And on most jobs, who needs help the most? Person of color.
Okay. Now, on page 151, and since you went there, a segue was an excellent segue because you didn't know that you were going to do it. But the question came up on page 251 of the Revised Expanded Edition. You said this in the middle. You said, what is the correct way to end white supremacy, racism?
And the answer I gave, what is the correct way to end white supremacy? The answer, according to what I have written, is number one, non-white people put into use the United Independent Compensatory Code System concept. And I described what that was earlier.
Yes.
And say, but don't mix up what one person is saying with what another person is saying.
Correct.
Including what Neely Fuller says in the concept.
Correct.
Just don't mix it up, with something that somebody else is saying. Always make it clear. This is what Neely Fuller said, long after I'm gone. That's the way I want people to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Because that's how I'm saying it now, for the record.
For the record.
This is what that guy Neely Fuller said. And you can ad-lib. I mean, you can give your comment on it. If you say, yeah, this crazy guy, Neely Fuller, this is what he said.
Mm-hmm.
Just make sure that you quote me correctly.
That's right.
All right? I mean, you can editorialize it any way you want to.
Yes.
But make sure you don't mix it up with something that Malcolm X said, or something that you are saying, or your opinion on something.
Don't mix it up.
Don't mix it up. That's the main thing. Why? To protect Fuller and his legacy? No. To keep down confusion.
Confusion, yes.
And to solve problems, because you cannot solve a problem if you start mixing stuff up that shouldn't be mixed.
And what is number 2 you have under there?
And number 2 is the correct way to end white supremacy. White people doing everything that is necessary to practice the quality relationship requirements. And I have a list of them here in the book. You can find them there somewhere. I think it's at the end of the politics section.
Yeah.
Right, all right. Requirements in regards to non-white people in all times, in all places, in all areas of activity, including economics, education, entertainment, labor, law, politics, religion, sex, and war, counter-war. White people doing everything that is necessary to practice the equality relationship. And so that's a cliche saying that I made up, a compensatory saying, quality relationship, which is what nobody has on this planet right now. That's why we have all this turmoil. We don't have equality relationship. But I have a suggestion for what quality relationships are.
Yes,
or should be.
As a matter of fact, I'm looking at some of the stuff. So it starts on page 403, and you have an extensive list of sayings or quotations on there for various parts, depending upon what a person was at when they asked a certain question. Okay, yeah, so that is on there, or in there. Mm-hmm. Okay. All right. What is the correct thing to do and say against non-white people who speak or act as if ending racism, white supremacy, is not the most important thing that they should be doing? That's a question for next week. Yeah, we'll pick up there on page 251 next week, and I think
251.
Yeah, and we'll probably end it next week. That is this section of it. Anyway, TalkTapeRadio.com, the world's greatest radio the way it should be heard. Thank you, Mr. Fuller. Thank you, callers. Thank you, viewers. Thanks for listening, and we will see you next week.